Hello, hey, hope everybody's doing well. We're gonna do a quick video about private messages in Ruby and talk about a little bit about abstraction. Um, my goal is to kind of do like little small, shorter little presentations every other week. That way we can just get into some different topics and also help me to explain things slightly better. So before we actually jump into that, I actually am going to just give a little shout out for the Ruby Newbies page. As you see on the screen, slowly hacking away at some things that I want to get done for the page. For one, if you notice there's a Fork Me on GitHub page link here. That was, yeah. And if you go into the actual GitHub, we've got some issues that I've been working on. Looks like we're actually pretty close to finishing all of them except the chat box. I have no, actually I wonder if you can assign issues. Yeah, so yeah, I'm working on a blog to start putting up some more information, a lot of the things that we talk about here on these videos. I am just working to get on the site so that way we can just reference certain things. Looking for any contributions if anybody has things, but I'll have more about that later. This target blank, very simple thing I've got somebody working on right now. And the chat box is something that I have not tackled yet. I want to be able to have a chat box on the site for people to actually, or to be able to talk back and forth. And one last thing I did want to, sorry, talk back and forth. Let me finish that thought. While doing the videos, rather than trying to push everything to Google+, I'm trying to get off the platform of Google+ eventually, but going to have to build our own stuff. Also, there's a Ruby Newbies, GitHub/Ruby Newbies group. You're able to join. I'll just need your GitHub username if you want to reach out to me and send me that information. If you need my information, I now have a proper link here. You can go to my page, which is not working, which I will need to check that out. But just find me on Twitter or email me. My GitHub page is here. I do have a contact information on the bottom. So it's just brianlamar.github.io. Not sure why my link's not working at the moment, but I'll have to fix that later. Other than that, we're going to be doing some TDD sessions, if you see on the right, on every other week, Tuesday nights. And it will be Tuesday night my time, so depending on where you're at. We had a really good turnout last time. I'm going to be doing that next week. So if you have time and want to join us, that'd be awesome. If not, you can watch the videos after the fact, and you'll see that under our archive. But other than that, it's going to be a quick video. Here's our practice session videos here. Also I did create a intro to start your nitrous setup, because it looks like we're going to probably use nitrous for the most part while doing those until we find a better solution. But to get that set up, I'd recommend watching that video if you plan on joining us. So other than that, I've got nothing else to talk about other than the task at hand, which is private messages. So let me switch over to that presentation. And again, this would be pretty quick because it's not too in-depth. But I know one thing that I had when I first started, I did never use private messages until actually I started with a job here and started really getting into learning Ruby. Here as an IZEA, I work at IZEA as a Rails engineer, and kind of started learning in more in-depth Ruby, more than just Rails. So I guess we'll just start. So private messages, I only have a couple slides. I'm actually doing something I tried to avoid, but some live coding. Not really coding, just more of I'll open up the IDE to talk about the problems. So private messages are like light switches to help the abstraction of code. And when we talk about abstraction, if you look at this cake in this cake class, we've got a bake method inside. So ideally, you should be able to call cake.bake once you initialize the cake, which I don't have an initialize method just for purposes of the video. There's more code there, which would probably be like initialize or adding attributes, but whatever. Just look at the bake method. So we've got a long list of things here, as you can see, as far as baking a cake, that ideally, once you call cake.bake, you should be able to produce a cake. But the idea, and we talked about the project practical object-oriented design in Ruby, which was two sessions ago, 2 to 3. We did 2 weeks of it. They talk about keeping your methods short and concise. So the idea is actually keeping your methods between 3 to 5 lines of code. So obviously with this bake method, I didn't actually write code per se, because I felt it would just been useless to have random gibberish in there anyway. So I just put notes. And what I have is like a list of ingredients, and then I've got some extra information at the bottom to set the oven to 350, and then remove after 10 minutes and let stand. Now, stuff like this, when you start listing out different parameters and different variables, it kind of bloats out the methods. And the idea of abstraction is that to abstract certain code. So it's actually all the unneeded code that you don't need to really know about is abstracted in either a different method or in a private method. So what we're going to do now, I'm actually going to just stum around in the IDE. I'm going to copy and paste this. And just bear with me. I'm going to open up Sublime and switch over to that screen. So where are we at? All right. So you should be able to see my screen at this moment. So I've got that method here. So the idea is the breaking of the method. There's a video actually I'm going to talk about after the fact. Actually, let me just pull it up now, because if I don't, I have a bad habit of not talking about stuff that I mentioned on these videos. And I just need to switch over to myself. But if anybody's interested, I have a YouTube playlist called Catch Up Conf, which is a bunch of conference talks that I found intriguing or usually are recommended to me. And I had to keep a list, and we'll watch them on repeat every now and then, like on a Saturday. But there's a talk by Ben Ornstein about refactoring from good to great. And he talks just about what I'm about to talk about, is this all the information that we don't need to know about, abstract that into a private method. And that can literally be, by writing that, Ruby knows that when you type the word private, that those would then be a private method. And these are methods that just contain extra information that's not really needed to know. For example, now there's a better way to do this. So if I have an ingredients method, I might not want to abstract that, but for the sake of this explanation, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So if I have ingredients, actually, so now that I know I have ingredients, I can then call ingredients here as a method. And Ruby knows that you don't really need to do anything as far as calling a method. They know that it's called here. So now I have ingredients, but I think actually one good thing about private methods is too is you can actually create better names. So rather than ingredients, I put like gather ingredients. So now we just took our method from, I don't know how many lines, down to less. And so now we'll just, for things like private methods, it makes it a lot easier to abstract code. So anything that, like in this video, they explain, he's going through an order processing ticketing system or something like that, I think. There's a lot of complicated code that happens, and he just uses a private method, for example, to find the orders within a specific range, and then calls the orders within range here with like so. So that's one way to use private methods. Private methods is another way to Actually, I'll just explain that one. That's it. So yeah, just abstracting complicated code. I couldn't explain it any better. But yeah, if you have questions on this concept, feel free to reach out. I have one more example I just want to go through. So sorry for the dancing around the screen. I had one more example I'm just going to talk about. So this example here is an exorcism IO problem that actually, I guess if you have another problem, I apologize for spoilers. But I found that exorcism is a great opportunity for me to practice some of these concepts. I find that a lot of people that are on exorcism, they usually have one way of doing certain things. And I started doing a lot of private methods on there, and I got a lot of feedback that they were unnecessary. But I felt like otherwise. I feel like private methods is a great way to tell your story with code. That's one thing that's always that gets missed when doing writing code is telling a story. So I've got here. I think I'm missing an if and no, I think I'm good. We're not actually writing the code, so if I miss something, that's fine. So yeah, we've got a compute method here, and the idea is this method is way too long. So there is an opportunity for us to make this less complicated. So the idea for the hamming method is to take one strand and another strand and match each variable within the DNA. Actually, I'm going to explain it. I just recommend looking it up on Wikipedia. Hamming distance. Yep, so you take two strings equal length, and find which corresponding symbols are different, and then you've got numbers. So here's an example. So they're matching this and that, and the difference is 2. And if you want to read more about that, there you go. But now we just want to find out. So now we're finding this section right here, a nice little conditional. Sometimes conditionals are usually sometimes there's a better way to do it. It's a bit of a code smell when you see like case statements and conditionals that are rather long, and then we've got a little loop here. If someone to try to figure out what the hamming distance is, they'd obviously have to go to Wikipedia. But the idea is to find, not have to use Wikipedia or different documentation, to actually find out what your code's actually doing. If you want to compute the hamming distance, there's nothing here. Oh, here we go, h distance. That's another thing. Actually having good names for your variables helps too. So I recommend, instead of doing h distance, writing out hamming distance. It adds a little extra characters, but it makes it a lot easier. So now we know we're trying to find the hamming distance because that's what that's returning. This right here can actually be abstracted into another method called find. Actually, I'm not sure what this code does. So the if statement, we've got the first length and second strand length. And okay. So it's actually ordering. So it's setting the first and second string length by length. So order strands by length. And again, I'm under the impression that naming stuff should just happen off the fly. So if this isn't a good name, I will figure it out later. But the idea is actually to get to write code and not stress over writing names. So eventually I will probably have a better name to use, but for the moment I'm just going to do that. And this code actually won't work, but you get the idea. I'm not really passing any variables, so it actually doesn't have any access to these first strand and second strand, but normally I'll just pass them in as arguments, but for the sake of explanation, that makes a little more sense. And I removed lines of code, and this is still within the 3 to 5 scope, I think. Actually, it's about 7. But you get the idea. So I'm ordering the strand by length, and now I'm setting a variable called hamming distance. And then now I am calculating the distance here. So again, so now I've got a new method that calculates the distance. And I'll probably just throw those variables in here too. And again, this probably this could be smaller here, but the idea is to write code that writes a story, and that's what I kind of use to for private messages. Now, this isn't great code. It could be better, but I'm just trying to focus on this method here. So this idea. So now you have a compute method that first orders the strands by length, calculates the distance, and then returns the hamming distance, which that return is not needed. There you have it. I mean, this makes a lot more sense than reading all this code, because eventually when you start seeing conditionals, you eventually just your mind just wanders. And I think this is a lot easier to reading than all that. And the best thing about private messages is that they are private. There's no need to test to see if the order of strings and length are correct. Now, there might be a case where you actually need to test that, so you might want to pull that out of a private method and actually keep that. And that's what abstraction is all about too. So you keep your method short and make sure that the methods make sense as you walk through it. So that's my little rant about private methods and messaging and abstraction. There's so much more you could talk about. I barely even touched the surface. Again, even the code that was written, cool. Even the code that was written actually could be better, but that wasn't the idea. Writing good code is actually talking more about private messaging. That is all I've got. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love to talk and chat with people that have questions about, writing code and private messages. But if you're interested, just reach out. Let me try it again. It's weird. So the link does work. So if you want to reach out, just find me on the Ruby Newbies page and either follow me or email me. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you watching.